All right. So we should be recording now. And what I would like to do first is introduce Holly Emore, who you all know, but she's not only executive director of the seminary, she's also a graduate and a member of the Votaries Alumni Circle. So Holly is going to share any announcements she has with us about Cherry Hill to get us started.
Thank you. Yeah, I do want to pontificate just a teeny bit and say that this is one of the most exciting events of the year. It is the best thing about it is that our students organize, plan, and carry this out. And of course, our students are the core of who we are. That's why we're here. But there is another group that is essential and that often is sort of in the background, and that's our faculty. So it's very exciting to be able to honor people today. We do have some announcements. First of all, this may be the most exciting I can think of at the moment, and that is on March 4th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Cynthia Sebuhar will be graduating with her Master of Divinity. Yay, Cynthia, it's finally here. We're so excited for her. Then we have another whole group, literally a cohort of people, the first people to graduate from the Spiritual Direction Certificate, which was organized by and taught by Amy Beltane. So we're very excited about that on March 22nd at 2:00 p.m. Eastern Time, and you'll definitely get a notice about that. And then a reminder to everybody that we've got an intensive at Mystic South Conference in Atlanta in July. It's called Magical Music, and our keynote speaker today will be the lead instructor. We'll open up. Cherry Hill is going to be a sponsor this year, and we're doing the opening reception on Thursday night. And so the conference runs from then until Sunday afternoon, and hope to see a lot of you there. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure at the moment to introduce Reverend Karen LeBlanc, who many of us know as Gwen, knew her as Karen Anderson, Gwen Anderson, in case you're confused. She's had the happy occasion of marrying and changing her name. And whoops, got the wrong intro up. I'll be right up with it. Here we go. So Karen brings a lifetime of experience, and I did just pull up the wrong one, so I may not say everything wonderful about you, my friend, but those of us who spent years in class with Karen love her dearly. She has a lifetime of group practice, dedicated pagan, a treasure trove of resources. She's an artist, and best of all, she's one of our graduates as well, and has been the pastor of New Bedford Unitarian Church in Massachusetts now for several years, and was formally ordained by the Unitarian Universalist Association of America just months ago, right? Yes. So we're really proud and pleased to bring back Karen LeBlanc to talk to Votaries. Take it away, Karen.
Well, hi, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I am now Reverend Karen LeBlanc. I can say that with some confidence, but better known to a lot of you as Gwen. And it is a real pleasure for me to be here today to celebrate all the deserving award recipients, always to remember Wendy. But my friend Wes, the coordinator of this event today, thank you. He also asked me to tell you about how I came to Cherry Hill, what I thought about the education that I got here, and how I've been able to make a career with my MDiv as a clergy person with a pagan theology. So here's my story, the short version anyhow, of how I got here. So I was initiated into the Tuatha De Danann tradition, part of the New England Covens of Traditionalist Witches back in 1995. Became a priestess in 2000, started my own grove, Ash Grove, out of New Bedford, Mass. in 2005. And by that time, my specialty was writing and performing original creative rituals for public use, including all the rites of passage like baby blessings and weddings and hand fastings and ritual funerals. And I was eventually asked to perform a legal wedding with a pagan hand fasting delicately thrown in for some friends and their very large family. So I wrote to the Secretary of State, filled out the application. Massachusetts gladly accepted my ordination from the New England Covens of Traditionalist Witches. Go Massachusetts. I got a few letters of recommendation, and that was it. I was a legal officiant in the Commonwealth. So I have, at this point, performed well over 100 weddings. I stopped counting at that point. So while that was all going on, I found this Unitarian church, First Unitarian Church in New Bedford. My sister and I actually got a job here on Sunday mornings preparing coffee and sandwiches for what we call communion in our church, which is fellowship after church. And I started to get to know the most amazing, really smart people that I could hold these in-depth conversations with like I had never been able to before with anyone, really. So I took a Sunday off. I went to the service and I got hooked, and I quit the job so I could become a member. And I loved being a priestess and being in circle. That was certainly foundational for me, but I also found that I really missed being in church and sitting with lots of people singing, especially, as well as being able to engage with some real free thinkers and community activists. I grew up Irish Catholic, and I went to Catholic school. My father was a Catholic priest for 16 years. That's a whole different story. But needless to say, I spent a lot of time in churches, and I always found some comfort there, especially when it was filled with music. So, story goes, at some point, my husband's grandfather died, Pop-Up, and he had been shipped up here from Florida to be buried with his wife. Now, he was not religious, though being Norwegian, some of the family were very loosely Lutheran. But one family member, one who planned the service, was Catholic, and she brought a priest to speak at his little service. And he was absolutely terrible. He had never met Pop-Up. He did not take the time to ask the family about him, so it was very impersonal. He droned on endlessly and almost randomly, repeating that dreaded phrase, in other words, like 50 times. And my former husband leaned into me and said, "Babe, Pop-Up would hate this. You should be doing this because you're wicked good at it." And at that very moment, in that funeral setting, it totally clicked for me that I definitely wanted to be more than a priestess. I wanted to serve my community and be able to give good ritual to people, even if they were strangers, and even if they didn't have a religion. I think that everybody deserved that. So I wanted to be a public minister and create some spiritually satisfying rituals and rites of passage for people who need them. There aren't a lot of moments of true clarity that we get to experience, but that was certainly one for me. And I knew that my priestess training, long as it was and tough as it was not going to be up to the task of really being a minister in the community. So I immediately started looking at seminaries and divinity schools. And of course, I first set my heart on Harvard Divinity School because it's only about an hour and a half from where I live. But I soon realized that if I got in, I would be faced with way too many obstacles, not the least of which are crazy tuition and really long travel. But one day, my friend Nico, who is also a member of my church and a pagan, handed me a brochure for Cherry Hill Seminary. And it said, "A pagan seminary" on the front. And I was just beside myself with glee when I went to the website and checked out all the classes that Cherry Hill was offering. And I realized I could actually afford it and that I could keep my job while I went to school. So I signed up, and that first class, I think it was called Raising Pagan Children, and Holly and I were in that class together, I believe, and it was in like 2006. So I took as many classes as I could afford, pretty much, and that I thought would be of benefit to me. And until Cherry Hill finally was able to give out real master's degrees, and then I matriculated into the public ministry MDiv program. I think that was 2009, yes. And it took me a long time, one class at a time, whatever I could afford. Some semesters I had to skip because life was insane or I was wicked poor. But I finally graduated after 10 years. Whew, in the ceremony in 2019, right here in my church with my congregation there and Cherry Hill representatives up on the wall on Zoom, and it was just fantastic. I really can't say enough about how the education that I got from Cherry Hill shaped the minister that I am now. Before I started classes, I thought that going to school online was not going to be really challenging intellectually, and I wasn't sure that I'd be able to really connect with other students without being in a physical classroom. I was completely wrong on both counts. The curricula were demanding and interesting, and the professors were so professional and personable and creative, and as we would say around here, they were wicked smart. I got to engage with some of the best minds in current pagan theological studies and some of the most widely known pagans in the world. And the experience and guidance that I got from Cherry Hill's instructors was just absolutely priceless. But let me tell you about my fellow students, because indeed we were able to create real bonds of caring and support in those classes online, and friendships were really made. For one thing, I never met a more diverse and widespread student body under one virtual roof. I took classes with people from east to west, north to south, all over this country. And I remember, I had people attending classes from Canada, England, Argentina, Belgium, China, and someone who was learning women's magic from a tribe in the Brazil rainforest, having to do a sat phone to come to classes. And talk about being challenged and having to up your game. I learned so much from my fellow students. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And I got to know so many different kinds of pagans and people with really unique and varied theological and spiritual perspective. And it just filled me. And I discovered that there is a whole trove of hyphenated people out there who identify religiously as pagan Buddhists and pagan Christians and pagan Quakers and pagan Jews, and a ton of pagan UUs, of course. And I didn't even know you could do that before I went to Cherry Hill, just be like, yeah, I'm both. Wow. Some of the classes were super life-changing for me. I see Bob Patrick here. His soul work class was amazing. Some of the content really made me face my interior self and think and put into words what my real feelings were about theology and ethics, where I was going on my spiritual journey, where I wanted to get on my spiritual journey. I got to dig really deep, and I put so many tools into my belt to prepare me for what was to come, thankfully. During my time at Cherry Hill, I attended 6 births as a labor assistant. I was a hospice volunteer for 2 years and developed a real knack for thanatological stuff because of a great class I took with Jen Bennett at Cherry Hill many years ago. I learned how to do solid, objective, scholarly research, and I wrote papers on such a regular basis for so long that writing 2 thoughtful, well-researched sermons a month is a total cakewalk now, and I don't have to write a bibliography. So in 2015, after being a member of my church for almost 20 years, after serving on endless committees, being a religious education teacher, having preached already 35 times from the historic pulpit upstairs in our sanctuary, our minister at the time abruptly resigned. And that was at the end of July. And if anyone knows about Unitarian churches, we mostly take the summers off and have lay-led services, maybe. So our church starts in September, and my congregation had just over a month to come up with a plan on how we were going to do church that year. So the Board of Trustees met, and the president called me the next day and asked if I would like to fill in as a part-time contract minister. I was more than willing. And at this point, it was definitely my dream job, the one I thought I wouldn't ever be able to get and jump through all the hoops to be able to achieve. And, and frankly, the one that scared the crap out of me, just realizing the weight of that position and the responsibility of it. But I also knew that I wanted to give this a go, and I think I was ready. I thought I was ready. I was ready. And it just so happened that I was also at a point in my studies where I needed to do some kind of internship. And I supposed that being thrown into the deep end of the pool of being a pastor to a congregation might qualify for that. But I didn't have a head minister to intern under. But as my witchy luck would have it, on my board of trustees was Dr. Crystal Lubinsky, who taught ecclesiastical studies at UMass Dartmouth. And she agreed to meet with me, come to all my services, give me notes, and write a recommendation at the end of the year. And thanks to Holly and Wendy and the Cherry Hill board for helping me make that internship happen on this end, because it was kind of an unusual request for an internship at the time. I had a really loose curriculum that I had written for my religious education class, and it was 8 to 11-year-old boys mostly. So we were going to do Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey throughout the year. So I adapted the monthly themes for services, and that was it. We were off, and within a month I was in the pulpit doing my thing. Finally got the office with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a private bathroom. Woo! But then in my first month and like a month and a week in this position, in this beautiful office, I had 2 deaths in the same family. An elderly mom who died of natural causes, and then her 36-year-old son who died a few weeks later of a drug overdose. Now the job is real. And I sat with that father and daughter in the hospital for as long as they needed me. And I prayed with them and I cried with them. And I performed both of the funerals and the interments of their bodies. And I knew I was right where I was needed and doing exactly what I was called to do. The first year passed like a flash. And at the end, they renewed my contract. And then they kept renewing my contract. They liked the energy that I brought to this congregation. They really liked my sermons. And let me tell you, after a succession of ministers who are all had the best qualifications and went to the best schools, they didn't work out, or they didn't stay for long. And my board came to the conclusion that what our congregation might need most, for a little while at least, was someone who really and truly loved them and who they knew and could trust. So after I got my MDiv officially, the congregation voted to ordain me and call me as their settled minister. Now, let me make it clear, the administrative body of the UUA does not ordain ministers. They basically ensure that the ministers that they offer on their roster go through the fellowship process and are well trained. Only congregations can ordain ministers in the UU tradition because we are a congregationalist tradition. I am not in fellowship with the UUA right now, and I'd be glad to speak to students about why I made that choice, but I am applying to be an affiliate in the UU Ministers Association. And I've had some great UU minister mentors and friends. Our regional office has been very supportive. And most people didn't care where I got my degree from or whether or not I was in fellowship, and just saw me for who I am and what I'm doing on this journey that I've been blessed to be on. So anyhow, COVID came as it did for us all. So the plans that we had made for the ordination were postponed like everything else. But it did happen finally and beautifully in October 2022. You can watch it on our YouTube channel. And we had a procession that included, I think, 5, maybe 6 UU ministers, 2 UCC, United Church of Christ ministers, the new local reverend from the Bethel AME Church, a Catholic priest, and 5 pagan clergy from my tradition, 2 of whom called the elements at the beginning of the ceremony. We processed down the aisle to the Star Trek theme instead of a traditional hymn. I sang the Rainbow Connection from the Muppet Show, and the postlude recessional was Bohemian Rhapsody from Queen, played with gusto on our amazing Flentrop organ, with just about everyone singing along to it in the sanctuary. It was the coolest ordination ever. Let me be clear. So over the years, I've been able to work with my community by serving on community action for better housing here in New Bedford, helping to house Afghan immigrants and other immigrants, and engaging really deeply in my interfaith community on all the mutual issues that we face. We host our city's Frederick Douglass Readathon every year and our domestic violence vigil. Last week, we had a concert to support the Bethel AME Church's 200th anniversary, and we had a world-class performance by amazing nationally known jazz musicians and vocalists from Tanglewood and Berklee School of Music. I've gotten to meet people who have come to speak at our church, like Elizabeth Warren and even Alexander. I get to go to dinner with Temple Grandin. Our church works tirelessly for social justice. We are devoted to protecting LGBTQIA neighbors. We have a new LGBTQ center going right across the street from us. We are super supporting anti-racism this year and spreading love and light. And wow, this really is a dream come true. And I am so blessed and grateful to have found my way here with your help. So as I come to the end of my 7th year now in this position, believe it or not, with profound thanks to Cherry Hill Seminary, I have piled up lots and lots of lessons. Persistence is one. Do it until it gets done. Patience, lots of it, is another. Learning to hold your tongue when you would like to scream is a real skill that needs to be developed. I'm still working on it, but I'm getting there. Humility is important in the sense that we are, all of us, always beginning students, right? We are constantly having to strive to understand more, to think and feel deeper, to listen to each other and learn from each other with open hearts and open minds. In this position I have been blessed to find myself in, there are times when it's really, really stressful and I get exhausted and drained. I get anxious and I worry about a lot of people all the time. People tell me secrets and I keep them. I engage with the suffering and trauma of other human beings and try to alleviate it. And when I start to get to the end of my rope, now I remind myself that I chose this path and it chose me. And there is absolutely nothing else I would rather be doing, nothing else. I ask my gods and goddesses for help. I ask my ancestors for guidance and my friends and colleagues for support. Because this is no journey to take without allies. And I know I can rely on this community right here at Cherry Hill for that love and support. And that really means the world to me. So thank you for inviting me to tell my story here today and to celebrate with all of you this grand day when we talk about the many wonders of the people that are at Cherry Hill right now. I am so glad and grateful to continue to be a part of this community. And I wouldn't be a really good alumna if I didn't put in another plug for the Summers Intensive in Atlanta. Magical music, sacred songs and chants across traditions, hosted by yours truly. And I think it's going to be wicked fun. And the more people that come, the better it will be. So please sign up, come on down to Mystic South in July. It is always an awesome and fun and interesting time with people from all over. So thanks again for letting me speak today, and I will close up like I do my church services every week. Hold fast, my friends. Stay strong. We love you. Live long and prosper. Go in peace. Reverend Gwen out.
Thank you so much, Karen. Let's all give her a hand, whether virtual or thank you so much. That's so inspiring. Well, before we go further, we have one person that we want to recognize before we get to Professor of the Year. There's somebody special that we have, the Votaries have chosen to give special recognition to for all of their support and stepping into the gap and supporting students and holding fast in the gale, so to speak. And so with that, I just want to invite Erica Barron to accept this recognition on behalf of the Votaries. Would you like to say anything, Erica?
Yeah, so first of all, I want to say thank you so much. This means a lot to me. I have now taught 2.5 courses at Cherry Hill. And I love the students at Cherry Hill so much. You all are so creative and smart and engaged, and I have just really enjoyed all of the time I get to interact with you and read your stuff. And so it's really been great to work with you all, and thank you so much for this recognition.
Congratulations. I think one of your students wants to say a few words today. Polly?
Hello. Those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Polly Springhorn. I'm working on my MDiv in theology and history, and I'm one of Erica's students. I took her Rites of Passage class in spring 2022, and when liturgical design needed a substitute professor in fall 2022, she parachuted in to save us. I enjoy taking class from Erica because of her contemporary perspective and her down-to-earth way of teaching and her sense of humor, her knowledge of how to recognize and prevent and heal after harm, and the guidance she gave us about deadlines and her palpable care for all of us made me feel at ease and confident that her classes would not burn me out. I knew I would be able to do good work and be heard when I had something to say. In Rites of Passage class, she brought in many helpful guest speakers from her professional circles who were true representatives of the clergy community. She always shared practical real-world experiences and guidance for conducting Rites of Passage. And when I was done with the course, I had learned a great deal about what to expect. And in both her classes, she welcomed reflections based on our traditions and what we were most familiar with, which made me feel valued. I was really eager to learn more about inclusive language and issues of consent and ways to honor and work with the new gender continuum we are in. And Erica had the knowledge and fluency to give me what I needed. And I am happy to have been one of Erica's students, and I'm so excited that we are honoring her with this special award. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you, Polly.
So thank you, Polly, for sharing those remarks. Congratulations to Erica, and your award certificate and honorarium are on their way. So be watching for those. And thank you, Holly, for your remarks so far. And also Karen, that was very inspiring. Thank you for sharing so much about your work and how Cherry Hill academics and faculty have helped to make this possible. I can certainly agree in my own work as a chaplain. Cherry Hill faculty and classes absolutely made that possible and made it such a joy. So just a reminder that if you have any questions for Karen or Erica, you can go ahead and put those in the chat now, and we'll have some time, hopefully toward the end, and get to those questions. Now we're going to move into our Professor of the Year Award, and a couple notes about that. As Holly mentioned earlier, nominations come in from Cherry Hill students, and then Votaries helps select the winner. So I just want to say to everyone who's made a nomination, thank you as always. And the winner will receive a lovely trophy to keep, as well as a cash honorarium, and they'll have the opportunity to help pick next year's winner. And I also want to recognize Amy Beltane, who's with us, I believe, still on the call. She won last year, so thanks again for doing all you do, Amy, for Cherry Hill, and for joining us today. Next, I want to hand it back to Holly, who's going to make a special presentation about Wendy Griffin and what she meant to Cherry Hill, and just a little bit about why we have named this award for her. Holly?
Yeah, when Votaries started this award 2 years ago, Wendy had literally only been gone a few weeks, and Cherry Hill was able to honor her just in literally her last days, which meant a great deal to her and to us. So some of us have come into the system since then and don't really know who she is. So we wanted to give you a little treat here to remember Wendy. As Cherry Hill's first permanent academic dean, Wendy brought a dedication to academic integrity and a devotion to pagan and nature spirituality. By the time she retired in 2018, she had inspired students and colleagues alike with her intellect, her skills, and engagement. The Votaries Alumni Circle created the Wendy Griffin Professor of the Year Award in her honor. Wendy wrote this about herself, and I think you'll enjoy it if you haven't read it before. I was a college dropout. At the end of my first semester at Northwestern University, back in the days when female students were locked in the dorm at 9 p.m., I made a rope ladder out of sheets and escaped out the window. I fled to New York to do off-Broadway, ending up working with Dustin Hoffman, among others. In between shows, I supported myself as a puppeteer, a beat poet, and a diamond courier. After several seasons, I went with friends to Mexico and from there to Florence, Italy. But the wet Italian winters depressed me, so I strapped my guitar on the back of my motor scooter and headed across the Alps to southern Spain. During the next decade, I married a Spanish pop musician, had a daughter, worked as a folk singer in London, and traveled across Europe with the band. 10 years later, I returned to the United States to find myself a single parent with a high school education and a very limited set of labor market skills. I worked as a Spanish-English interpreter in Chicago and then branched out into folk and cabaret singing before moving to California. Here I sang in several clubs and got full-time work as a cocktail waitress and bartender while I went back to college. Fortunately, going back to school gave me access to a great library, and I learned to love doing historical research. finally, I got enough scholarships to quit my job and go to school full-time at the University of California at Irvine, first getting my BA, magna cum laude, and then my PhD in the interdisciplinary social sciences with an emphasis on the sociology of sex and gender. I spent about 36 years as an academic. Wendy encouraged us to hold a first Cherry Hill Seminary Symposium, which we did as a collaboration with the University of South Carolina. She was a co-editor with Chaz Clifton of the Pomegranate Journal for a good many years, edited several volumes, including a papers publication for this symposium. To say that Wendy loved life would be an understatement. Here she is just after her retirement from Cherry Hill in Iceland with Hilmar Hilmarsson, head of the Asatru Church there. She saw her time as academic dean for Cherry Hill Seminary as her next big adventure. And what an adventure it was, as she changed the very shape of who we would become. Wendy was a longtime advocate of women's issues. Here she is at the 2017 LA Women's March with her husband, Doug Cox, wearing a pussy hat. She spent her last years passionately working for climate justice, as well as restarting her early career as a historical novelist. In fact, she was at the podium, having just completed a reading of her newest book when she had the stroke, which would eventually end her life in 2021. So very many of us loved Wendy as someone always ready to encourage, mentor, advise, and do everything she could to help students and aspiring scholars to get started. I remember one day when I said, I don't really need to do this. I'm tired, I'm old, and why should I finish my Master of Divinity? And she said, no, 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 you have to finish. She was a major donor to the seminary and worked to bring us closer to our goal of future accreditation. We close this remembrance of Wendy at left, by the way. That's a photo from the costume mystery party she held for her 75th birthday. We know that she was fond of this photo and would want us to remember her this way. It is in her honor that the Votaries chose to name the award for Professor of the Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Holly, for that wonderful tribute. It's always very moving. I only knew Wendy just briefly, and I'm so glad that Votaries has been able to present this award every year. And so now, as we move into the reason you've all come here today, I would like to introduce, we're going to have two folks who are going to say a few words about the winner, and then we'll make the big announcement. I would first like to welcome Angela Farmer, who is a Votaries member and a Cherry Hill faculty member. So Angela, I will pass it on to you.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you. My name is Angela Farmer, and I second everything Polly said about Erica. I too am in the Theology and Religious History Master of Divinity program. I've taught for Cherry Hill, and I'm teaching a course that starts next week. And I'm also an English professor and a UU coordinator of religious education. I'm looking toward using my MDiv to become an RE minister. And so I'm so glad to see so many beloved faces this afternoon. Each year, a distinguished member of our faculty is recognized for demonstrating teaching excellence in the classroom and a commitment to spiritual growth for students, with the prestigious Wendy Griffin Professor of the Year Award, special honor sponsored by the Cherry Hill Seminary Votaries Alumni Circle. The embrace of this complex role of spiritual development guide and academic teacher is at the heart of Cherry Hill Seminary's mission to empower spiritual leadership, scholarship, and ethics through theological and pastoral education, and to nurture interfaith engagement in a diverse society. This mission is modeled each day across our virtual campus by the outstanding faculty members who lead by example, both in their respective fields of ministry and in the classroom. This year's Wendy Griffin Professor of the Year is a seasoned Cherry Hill professor and a national award-winning teacher, an active member of their local religious community, and an advocate for pagan education. Their religious and spiritual path is intricate, including education and ministry from several religious traditions. Their interests show a true understanding of earth-centered spirituality. Having taught many classes for Cherry Hill over the years, this teacher has garnered respect and recognition across several graduating cohorts, many of whom I see here now. As some of you know, I am, among other things, a nerd. I'm an early adopter in most things, especially if I can include it in my pedagogical structure. So for about 6 months or so, I have been practicing conversations with artificial intelligence. My RE kids get a huge kick out of it. My Cherry Hill professors seem to be enjoying some of the artifacts that show up in my work product. My university students, the jury's out on that one. But given that part of an order's obligation is to tell a joke or two, and that I am not good at being intentionally funny. I can be accidentally funny, but intentionally funny, not so much. I asked the AI to help me out. Don't feel compelled to laugh. You're all muted, so I wouldn't know anyway. But here goes. So, why did the Latin teacher give all of her students C's? Because they were always around. Some of the jokes were incomprehensible, but if you think like a computer and stay awake for three days like I did, it might be funny, and I'm going to do my best to pronounce it the way I think the computer meant it. What did the pagans say when everything worked out as planned? Oh, covenant. Covenant. This is what she told me. I think she's a girl. Now it had some off-color jokes about adult RE. And then there was another one about the Unitarian Universalist with no eyes. These ones are actually pretty funny, and I think that the AI got them from my old English teacher. I don't mean my former English teacher, I mean the teacher who taught me Old English. So how does one call a mystery-solving Great Dane in Latin? Scooby-Doo, ubi-sunt. My favorite. And then finally, it would mean the world to me if you would translate this. And now it means the world to me to be able to honor this year's recipient of the Wendy Griffin Professor of the Year Award. Someone who's been advocating excellence, innovating, and inspiring Cherry Hill Seminary students to excel in spiritual exploration, which represents the best in interdisciplinary scholarship. This teacher sets high standards for their students, but is always available to support and guide them as they strive to meet those standards. I am among those students. This year's recipient is a teacher who embodies the very best of what it means to be dedicated, passionate, and an effective instructor. Not only did they step in at the last minute to take over a class when another teacher wasn't able to complete the course, but they also came out of retirement to continue sharing their wealth of knowledge and experience with the next generation of leaders. And funny how that doesn't really narrow it down this year, does it? We've had a couple of, we have a great group of people we can count on. It's for all these reasons, and in recognition of their deep commitment to scholarship and their enthusiasm and dedication to their students, that I am delighted to honor this person as the recipient of the 2023 Wendy Griffin Professor of the Year Award. So without further ado, I turn the floor over to Diane Cacciato, who will present, or Diane's right after me, yes?
Yes.
So
Yes.
Diane is going to present our Wendy Griffin Professor of the Year Award for their exceptional work in teaching graduate students in the MDiv program at Cherry Hill Seminary.
Thank you. I'm very grateful to have been given the honor of speaking about the 2023 winner of the Wendy Griffin Professor of the Year Award. And this year's winner is a most deserving winner. Last year, I was in the same class as Angela. And after 2 of the ritual experience class had already been completed, and at the very last minute, this year's winner was asked to take over the class. They were handed a curriculum and a syllabus that were not their own and had to hit the ground running, which they did without complaint. They did, of course, to appropriate academic standards, but in addition to that, they were warm and personable and demonstrated real caring for their students. They responded to questions outside of class immediately, and their answers were always thorough, thoughtful, and completely understandable. This year's winner did not take the easy route, as they could have, and simply lecture. Instead, they employed their years of teaching experience by using the Socratic method in class to great effect, and in doing so, expected and encouraged us to explore and engage with the material in an authentic way, and thus putting us to think for ourselves and to find our own meaning in the ritual experience. They did not just have us examine the rituals outlined in the curriculum, they allowed us to explore other rituals of our own choosing, which for me personally broadened my thinking and helped me see the value held by other religious and spiritual communities in their own rituals. After our class was concluded, I felt that the material we had covered, the depth of the engagement they had encouraged, and the breadth of ritual experience to which I was exposed had made me a better student, a better clergy member, and a more accepting and understanding person, especially regarding other faiths and spiritual practices beyond the realm of the pagan community. And what more than this can any student ask for? So it is with great pleasure that I announce that the 2023 winner of the Wendy Griffin Professor of the Year Award go to Dr. Robert Patrick. Congratulations, Bob. It's well-deserved. And thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And Robert, we'll turn it over to you for any remarks you'd like to share with us, and congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I want to express gratitude, and being a modern Druid, I'll have to do that in threes. So first, to the Votaries, for the incredible support that you offered to Cherry Hill Seminary in a broad sense. And this is just a moment in what I know is a great deal of support for the seminary. So thank you so much for that. I am deeply grateful that, and Wes shared this secret with me a few weeks ago. The first thing that he told me was that this was student nominated. That means so much to me. A long time ago, as a teacher in a classroom in mostly public schools and universities, you get observed a lot by your evaluators who fill out forms and send those things in, and those are all useful. But I determined a long time ago that my very best evaluators were my students. They told me what I was getting right, they told me what I was getting wrong, and they also helped me fix it so that I could do better. And at Cherry Hill, that's been true. At Cherry Hill, I have not taught a single class where I haven't felt that the students in the room were co-collaborators with me. Very often learned more than I think they did. And so I'm so very grateful that for the students that I've had, for the nominations that I've received here. Diane and Angela, thank you for all of the kind words that you offered. And the last gratitude, the third one, is in memoria of Wendy Griffin. I started out knowing Wendy as the dean, and I served several years as the chair of the Ministry Advocacy and Leadership Department. And so I worked with her in a collegial fashion, but that turned into a friendship. I facilitated 2 intensives for Cherry Hill over those years, and Wendy was there. That's where the friendship developed. She had this very demanding personality that really helped us get on track for what we needed to build towards accreditation. but she also had this incredible sense of humor. And I got to enjoy both of those, aspects of her, and the stories that you heard them in some of the review that Holly did. Her stories were unending and they were amazing. The last time that I saw her, she flew to Atlanta for a conference, let me know that she was coming, and we arranged to have dinner together in Atlanta. And it was just, it was just an evening of storytelling, and I wouldn't give anything for that now. There just wasn't enough time with her. And so to have my name associated with hers here for a minute is just a deep honor for me personally. So thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Robert. A little virtual congratulations again to Robert on this receiving the Professor of the Year award. And I would like to open it up for any questions that anybody has for Robert, Erica, Karen. If you do have anything, just type it there in the chat. And to give you a moment to do that, I'll mention, Robert, your special trophy here will be on its way. A little hard to see there, but that'll be on its way to you, as well as your honorarium. So congratulations again. And I just would like to say, regarding Wendy, it's an honor that we're able to do this as votaries, and as some of us pagans like to say, what is remembered lives. And I hope that that continues to be the case for Wendy and all her accomplishments. So I would just like to thank some folks. As we're waiting for any questions that might come in, I want to thank Holly, of course, Karen LeBlanc, Polly Springhorn, Angela Farmer, Diane Cacciato, and also on behalf of votaries, our executive board, Barry Stout and Ariane and Kirkpatrick. Thank you for all your work behind the scenes to make this happen. Would not be possible without you all. So thank you again. If there aren't any questions, which I don't see any in the chat, that's perfectly fine. What we'll do is go ahead and wrap up. And I would just like to take a short moment to say, if you would like to join Votaries Alumni Circle, you don't have to be an alumni. You can be faculty member, student, or just a supporter of Cherry Hill. There's various membership levels available. You can check those out on the Cherry Hill website. We'd love to have you be a part of the group. In addition to presenting the Professor of the Year award, we have virtual socials each year to get to know one another and find other ways that we can help support Cherry Hill and its mission. And I believe Holly just put the link there in the chat box if you'd like to click on that. Thank you all again for taking time out of your day for this award. Congratulations again to Erica and Robert. And if there's nothing else, I wish you all a wonderful afternoon, morning, wherever you are. And thanks again for joining us. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you.